If you are getting close to publishing your first book, you may be wondering if hiring a developmental editor is actually worth it. And I just wanted to have a pretty informal chat to talk about it because, as you can tell by the title of this video, I spent quite a lot of money on hiring a developmental editor, and if I'm going to be purchasing things at that price point, I want them to actually be worth it. So I spent $1,000, $350 total on a developmental editor, and long story short, absolutely worth it. Is it necessary if you're going to be self-publishing? Not necessarily, but will it make your story better? Yes, if you find an editor that's willing to work with you and the vision that you have with your story. So I want to talk about where I was kind of at with my book, Connecting Flights, when I decided to take the plunge and hire an editor. So at that point, I hadn't gotten too much feedback other than a few beta readers from Fiverr, which was very helpful, but I still was feeling kind of lost with the plot. Like, I had an overall idea, but because I didn't prioritize outlining in the beginning, I was still kind of lost. And I was like, okay, I need someone to look at the story. I need someone to talk to me about the story. I need to bounce ideas off someone that's experienced in editing in the writing community. So that's when I found this editor, and she was actually offering a Black Friday deal. So the price I paid, well, expensive and kind of similar to a lot of rates. It was actually a good deal compared to other rates that I would look at, because it also included a call right before she dug into my work. So she met with me for an hour. We talked about my book, kind of the overall plot, what I was looking for, and she had even disclosed to me, in the past, she had hired an editor, and the editor edited her book as though it was a romance and was kind of critiquing the whole romance arc. And then she was like, the story's not actually a romance. So she just wanted to get an idea of where I was coming from with this book. And I will say, out of all the edits I received, out of all the drafts that I had completed, when she sent it back to me, I'll put some screen recordings here, she sent back my whole manuscript with comments throughout it, her reactions, her suggestions, and things like that. But then she also included what you would call an editorial letter that had notes on characters, pacing, tone of voice, setting, world building, and the main feedback, I would say the biggest difference in drafts was between the draft before I hired her and the draft after I hired her. The story took a very different turn because she gave me some really great feedback that would really kind of amp the tension in the story, and the general plot beats and plot points were the same, but she kind of recommended a swap in characters, and it just made a lot of sense, and it actually made it more fun to revise the writing that way, because Mia's best friend is named Taryn, and because of this person's recommended feedback, Taryn gets more screen time in this book with Mia, specifically because of those edits, and I was really happy. After that draft, I hired a copy editor, but I was told that the draft was pretty clean, so I ended up kind of getting a bonus developmental edit on top of that. And some advice that you'll hear if you're looking at hiring an editor is to always ask for a sample edit first so that you can see that their style flows. I agree with this advice. However, I did not follow it because I had already been following this person's content on social media, that I was like, okay, no, I actually trust the quality of her work. And when I talked to her via the phone call or the video call, she had a lot of probing questions. I was like, okay, she knows where I'm coming from with this story. Same thing for the other editor I hired. I knew this person already, that I was like, I'm pretty sure the quality is going to be good. I made my decision before asking for a sample edit. Having said that, you're totally entitled, and it's a totally common practice to ask for a free sample edit. Some of you might be thinking holy crap, I've already spent a bunch of money in investing, learning how to write, maybe taking other writing courses, maybe hiring paid beta readers on Fiverr, that you're hiring a cover designer, that you're I don't know if I can swing developmental edits. I think if I had to choose one thing to put most of my eggs in my basket, would be, or in one basket, whatever that saying is, would be a developmental editor, because things like cover design, you don't need a custom cover right away. This cover is actually pre-made, and I have a whole video about the types of cover design when you're looking into self-publishing that you can look up, but this is actually a pre-made design but it's quite unique in that it fits the story of this book so well and the main character. I just changed like the font and the title and things like that. So pre-made is a lot cheaper than custom cover. Do you need beta readers? No, but I recommend it because it was interesting to see a consistency in some themes. But if you're getting a developmental editor, they're going to give you such detailed feedback, especially if you're feeling so lost with your draft. Another option that I've seen before, which is a little bit cheaper than hiring a developmental editor, is to hire an alpha reader. And this is when like you showed no one your draft yet. And you're like, I just need someone to see this, to see where I'm at. And they'll give you the same type of feedback, which I would have done super early on, but I chose to get beta readers instead. And the more eyeballs on your draft, the better. I hired a proofreader at the very end of this one. That was the last editor I hired. She did a great job. Was it necessary? No. But would I have cut out the developmental editor for this book? Absolutely not. Even if I just wanted to make my own cover on Canva, like if I was budgeting really hardcore and I could only pick one thing, it would be a developmental editor. So I do think it's worth it. I have a lot of videos on my channel that if you're thinking of publishing your first book, check out. I also wanted to talk about turnaround time. I gave her my first draft and I received final edits about a month later, which is honestly pretty quick, pretty standard. She was reading my full manuscript. My manuscript was around 45,000 words and I had wanted it to get it way up there, like around the 80,000 mark. And so she made a lot of suggestions that helped me beef up a lot of scenes. And then I went into rewriting and revising and all that stuff. To be honest with you, I spent a lot of money total on publishing this book. Didn't really stick to my budget like I planned, but I learned a lot in terms of what timeline to hire what person. Like I would say I hired a copy editor too late and I hired a copy editor too early, and potentially I hired a developmental editor too late. Like I should have flipped the two around. So a copy edit is when you're just like cleaning up grammar, commas, maybe a bit of line editing there, making it sound pretty. The developmental edit is all about the plot, pacing the characters so the story go together. I should have done that first. But instead I got super ambitious and I was like, I have beta readers that have already read it. I have some feedback. I just want the copy edits. And it was unfortunate because those copy edits, well, this editor did a great job. Because I hired this copy editor before I hired the developmental editor for, what's the number again? $1,350. I made so many changes because of her feedback. So a lot of those copy edits that I paid for, I couldn't even use because I cut so many scenes in this book. I rewrote so many new scenes. Anyways, if you want to check out Connecting Flights, link is below. If you want to take a course on helping you become a self-published author, I highly recommend Publish and Thrive. Link is also below. I believe there's a few more extra days to start your enrollment, or you can check out my full review here, and I will see you in the next one.